Hello and welcome to ChemTube. My name is Jakube Paul, your chemistry teacher. In our last lesson, we looked at the second part of the classification of matter. In that lesson, we defined mixture. We classified mixture into homogeneous mixture and heterogeneous mixture. We differentiated mixtures from compounds, and we ended that particular lesson by discussing some methods for separating mixtures, be it liquid-liquid mixtures, solid-liquid mixture, or solid-solid mixture. In today's lesson, our focus is going to be on the particulate nature of matter. This particulate nature of matter can take us up to 2 to 3 lessons to finish up. But today our focus would be on the evidence of the particulate nature of matter. Then atoms, molecules, and ions. And we'll finally look at what? Atomicity of an element. So at the end of this lesson, you as a student is expected to be able to cite and explain some evidence that supports matter being made of what? Tiny particles. Then secondly, you are able to define atoms. You are able to define molecules as well as ions. And lastly, you are able to explain the atomicity of an element. Okay? Great. Now, when we talk about the evidence of the particulate nature of matter, there are some evidence that are scientifically regarded. Some of them are what we'll look at today. We'll look at diffusion. We would look at osmosis. And then lastly, we would also look at what? The dissolution of a solid in a liquid. These are 3 evidence that we are going to be looking at. Okay? Now, when we talk about diffusion simply refers to the movement of the particles of a fluid. Fluid could be what? Liquid or gaseous in nature. Okay? So, the movement of the particles of a fluid from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. That is from a point of release toward other parts of the room or atmosphere that is under consideration. A typical example is when you spray your air freshener in a particular section of the room and you move to a different part of the room. Before you know what's happening, when you move to that other part of the room, you start perceiving the fragrance of the air freshener. Reason behind this is that the particles of that air freshener has moved from the point of release to that point where you are standing. It has moved and is occupying the entire what? The room, the entire room. Okay, just like when we talked about the particles of a gas, we said that the particle of a gas occupies the entire container that it is placed in. The same thing applies to this case because the fluid could be what? Liquid or gaseous in nature. So the particle spreads and occupies the entire atmosphere where it is released. Okay, good. So it is the movement from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Osmosis, on the other hand, has to do with water molecules. It is the movement of water molecules from a more dilute solution, okay, to a more concentrated solution through a semi-permeable membrane. For we to talk about osmosis, a semi-permeable membrane must be what? Involved. Okay. Movement of water molecules from a region of lesser concentrated solution to a higher concentrated what? Solution. An example is you placing some beans seed in a glass and pouring water into it and leaving it for some days. When you come back, you discover that those beans have swollen up. Okay, they've swollen up. Reason being that the particles of that water molecule, okay, or the particles of the water molecule has penetrated into what? The beans through the semi-permeable membrane and has enlarged the bean seeds. Okay, good. Now, when we talk about the dissolution of a solid in a liquid, a typical example is a cube of sugar. When you drop a cube of sugar in water, okay, even without agitating the water or stirring the water, with time, the particles of that cube of sugar start breaking off and what? Spreading all over the water. And then when you stir it, you will hardly see even a particle of the sugar anymore. Okay? So this is to show you that matter, e.g., or for example, the cube of sugar is particulate in what? Nature. Okay, great. Now, let's talk about the particles of matter. Particles of matter includes atoms, molecules, and what? Ions. So that brings us to what? The definition, or what an atom means. What is an atom? An atom is basically what? The smallest particle of an element that can take part in a chemical reaction. It is the smallest what? Particle of an element that can exist and take part in a chemical reaction. It is the basic unit of an element. Okay, every element is made up of what? Atoms. And these atoms tend to retain the composition and properties of that element. For example, the color of that what? Element. Okay, let's take for instance a metallic element. A metallic element is known to be what? A good conductor of what? Electricity. Now, an atom of a given metal that is a good conductor of electricity is also expected to be what? A good conductor of electricity. Atom possesses the same composition and properties of the elements from which it is what? Extracted. Okay? Good. Now, when we talk about molecules, on the other hand, a molecule is made up of two or more atoms that are chemically bounded what? Or bonded together. Two or more atoms chemically what? Connected or joined together. Okay? And molecules, just as atoms, also what? Possesses the what? The composition and the properties of the elements. Okay? That has those atoms. Because I said two or more atoms chemically what? Combined together. Okay? Now, something else you need to know about molecules is that a molecule can be made up of what? Atoms of different elements. For example, H2. This is a molecule of hydrogen. Okay? Good. H2O. This is a molecule of water. Here we have 2 atoms of what? Hydrogen. Here we have 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of what? Oxygen. This is a molecule, this is also a molecule. So it is a group of what? Atoms that are chemically joined or connected together. Okay? And they still retains the properties of that particular what? Element or compound. Is that okay? Great. Now, what about ions? Ions are also made of what? Atoms. But the difference between ions and molecules is that ions are what? Possessing what? Charges. Ions are a group of atoms that possess what? Electric charge. The electric charge can be positive, the electric charge can be what? Negative. If the ions are positively charged, we are talking about cations. Okay? If the ions are negatively charged, we are talking about anions. Okay? So the difference between molecules and ions is what? The charges that the ions possess, which the molecules don't possess. Okay? Great. Okay. So when we now talk about atomicity, atomicity of an element refers to the number of what? Atoms that make up a molecule of that what? Element. Number of atoms that make up a molecule of that element. So when we talk about atomicity, some elements are monatomic, some are diatomic, we have triatomic elements, and then we also have tetratomic, and we have polyatomic. Generally, diatomic, triatomic, and tetratomic all falls under what? Polyatomic. Because when you say something is polyatomic, it means that it contains what? 2 or more what? Atoms. Okay? Now, generally, when we talk about monatomic elements, all metals are usually monatomic. They are usually monoatomic. Okay? Again, rare gases such as helium, neon, and argon are also what? Monoatomic. So all metals, all rare gases, they are monoatomic. Other gases such as hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, they are what? Diatomic. Okay? Now, an example of something that is, or a substance that is triatomic is what? Your ozone. Okay? Now, for tetratomic, your phosphorus is what? Tetraatomic. Then polyatomic, your sulfur is what? Polyatomic. 8 atoms makes up a molecule. Okay? So when we talk about atomicity, like I said, we are talking about how many atoms of that element makes up one molecule of that same element. How many atoms of that element makes up a molecule of that element? I repeat myself again. All metals are monatomic. all rare gases are monatomic. Most other gases like hydrogen, like oxygen, like your nitrogen, they are what? Diatomic. Okay? Good. So that is what atomicity is about. To wrap up this lesson, I said some evidence of the particulate nature of matter are diffusion, osmosis, and the dissolution of a solid in a liquid. Okay? Good. We define atoms to be what? The smallest particle of an element that can take part in a chemical reaction. And we said molecule is what? Referring to two or more atoms that are chemically combined together and that possesses the same word, composition and properties of the element or the compound. Okay? Then we said that ions refer to what? A group of atoms that possess electric charge. Okay? And we said the electric charge can be positive or negative. When it is positive, it is known as what? That particular ion is known as what? Cation. But when it is negative, it is known as anion. Okay? Then we said atomicity refers to what? The number of atoms of that element that makes up a molecule of that element. Okay? Good. Now, in our next lesson, we would be looking at atomic what? Theory. Atomic theory. In that lesson, we would look at Dalton's atomic theory and we look at the modern atomic theory. Okay? Good. If you are joining us for the first time in this lesson and you want to continue being a part of us, you can go ahead and subscribe to the channel and as well as click on the notification button so that you can be informed of the next lesson when it is out. Okay? Then if you have any question or any inquiry or any suggestion, you can contact me through the email that is written in the description of this very lesson. Okay? You can go ahead and make your comments as well through the comment section. At this point, I want to thank you for being a part of this lesson, and I hope to see you in the next lesson. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.